Welcome, everyone, to your workshop on how to create beautiful boundaries. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. For a long time, I have said boundaries are my biggest work. Now I don't say that anymore because I realized everything is my biggest work. I just got to keep working. But boundaries have been a big, big part of my work. And I'm so happy to be able to share some boundary work with you tonight. Hodu Lashem. So here's how today is going to go. First, I'm going to open up and just tell you a little bit about our coaching school world, what you're entering when you're entering this workshop, what we're about. I'm going to cough a little bit on occasion. And then we're going to go into an introduction to boundaries, and we're going to talk about boundaries from many different angles. Then we're going to go into the work, and that's your end. And the work is a 3-part work. And at the end of the work, we're going to do action. We're going to take action on your life. And all of this is going to take all the way till 9:30. So it's not like a speech where the beginning is interesting and then you kind of fall asleep. It's quite the opposite, actually. The longer you stay, the more work you're doing. So hop aboard. We're going to be working the whole time. Okay, let's start at the beginning. What is a boundary? So a boundary is a guideline that lets us know where we can and can't go. And it's really that simple. It lets us understand how to interact with pretty much anything. And, thank you. The first place that we see a guideline and a boundary being made is a place that is very, very profound. And it's when the world was created. This is just a perspective, just how I see it. But how I understand it is that Hashem created the world because he wanted to give us everything. And so he just, brought about a world. And then the first thing that he did was that he divided the waters into heaven and earth. It's so interesting because here's a God who wants to give us a divine heavenly experience, but the only way that he could give it is in the human dimension, making a separation. So, this just blows me away because it lets me know that perhaps we could imagine that God himself had to create a boundary in order to give us something good. And maybe we don't even have to imagine that, because what followed in mankind is that he gave us the greatest gift of all. First, in the garden, he gave us a boundary. Second, that one didn't work out so well, but don't worry, we had another chance right there at Har Sinai. He gave us a whole book of boundaries. Here is how you live. Here's what to do when you wake up in the morning. Here's what you must not do. Don't go here. That's what's going to happen. And that's how he deals with us, right? He lets us know boundaries. And we know that Hashem is all love and all giving. So we understand from this that one of the deepest gifts you can give to someone in a relationship is to let them know, here's how to treat me if you want to connect with me. Here's how to be with me in my space so we can really, really get close. So what it turns out is that boundaries, rather than being something that push somebody away, actually invite them into close connection with you. And when we don't honor boundaries, we can end up having resentment against other people, which is the opposite of close connection. We can land up stepping on other people, which is the opposite of close connection. We can land up in all kinds of boundary violations. So this work is very, very profound. Why do women have so much trouble with boundaries? What's up with that? This class is full and this morning's class was full. I'm like, we must be hitting a super hot topic. It's hard because women are connectors. As a matter of fact, there are real serious halachos about, women basically navigating within connection and not separation. So we're connectors, we're nurturers, we have Bina, we're looking for that connection, and we want to give. And so setting up a boundary can oftentimes seem like I am dividing. I'm going to lose out over here. Somebody's not going to like me. Somebody's not going to love me. Or even I'm just not going to like myself, because what I think of as a good, healthy, wonderful, loving person is a giver, right? Or what I think of as a connected, intuitive person is a sharer. If I put a boundary about that, what am I going to talk about? I don't know if you've ever struggled with that, but that thought has occurred to me, as I worked on the boundaries of sharing, like, well, what's going to be juicy? There's so many questions about what happens on the other side of a boundary. So once we understand that boundaries create connection, the most beautiful thing to understand is that when you set a boundary, what happens on the other side of it is connection. Sometimes connection with someone else, sometimes connection with your actual self, sometimes connection with Hashem. Always connection with dignity, which is awesome. Okay. So how does boundary work relate to coaching school? Well, we've got a couple of things going on. The first is that the coaching model is a wholeness model. It does not say, here's what's the matter with you, come, let's fix it. It says you are creative, resourceful, and whole. You have everything you need. Hashem is sending you on the journey of your lifetime. And I respect and honor that. That is the boundary that's in this space, that this is your life. And I am here to help. That's why you hired me. And therefore, I will stand next to you and shine a flashlight on the places that you may not have looked. And I'll shine a light of compassion or love or being on places where you might not have been able to do that for yourself and see that about yourself. I'll just shine a flashlight so you can see you're magnificent, but never will I tell you what to do or impose my life on your life or tell you what's the matter with you or diagnose you or, put you in some type of box that you don't belong. Not all diagnoses are bad, by the way. That's just not this model. Okay. So coaching is a very, very boundaried, respectful space for the human experience. It is so, so beautiful. That's our first reasoning, our first, intention behind coaching and boundaries is that we teach our coaches to have inner boundaries for when they get triggered with a client, when they do want to tell a client what to do, when it does feel like so resonant to them that they're mixing up their life and the client's life. And also, pardon me, and also because, because we want them to be excellent coaches. Now, the second thing is that our coaching school is actually opening up for new students, and we begin training July 25th, and we take our school pretty seriously. We're very excited about it and know that when women step into this school, it is a God thing. It is not an us thing. We are just the vessels holding a beautiful school. They really do have a transformative experience. From the first class, their lives take a new journey entirely. And the places that they're able to look and the ways that they're able to interact in relationships are completely different. For many women, it's just a whole new chapter in life, something that they have to be ready for. You don't come to coaching school unless you're ready, but when you're ready, it's incredible. So my duty is to let you know through this experience what it is like, what it can be like for you. So one of the things that is dear to us about our school is that we are experiential, meaning there is frontal teaching, such as I'm doing now. Someone's going to be teaching and you're going to be kind of drinking it in and seeing, what resonates, what makes sense. But then we get to work so that you can find out about how these skills and tools resonate for you, how they're working in your life, how you can work them in your life. And then we give you tons of practice to practice coaching. It's a completely, it's an experiential journey. And today's learning is going to be very similar to that. It's going to be an experience for you that we want you to have. Okay. So we have just a couple more minutes for this introduction before we go into the work. And what I want to talk to us for a few minutes is about some different types of boundaries. I don't know about you, but when I first started learning about boundaries, it mostly had to do with people who were hurting my feelings and people who were getting in my way, or people who wanted very much to come into my life in ways that weren't comfortable for me. And I just had to figure out, how do I put up these boundaries? And they were very, very external. And that has a lot of value, but it did not help my relationships. It basically just was how do I, navigate basic practical life that I was having trouble with. But with time, what I learned is that most of the boundary work takes place on the inside. There's an inner workings of boundaries. Actually, I would say 90% of it. And then the last 10% is sometimes you've got to do something different or say something different. And it's not as hard as you think once you understand what's going on the inside. So we're going to be looking at boundaries in a completely different way. So just to give you a little broad picture. Oh, so I was saying, I used to think boundaries are about other people, like getting in my physical space, but, like it's time to leave type of thing. But, and I don't mean that in any mean way, God forbid. I love all the people in our life, but like just the ability to know, like when I'm done with something, right? When I'm done, actually, I might be done, no matter how much I love someone or I'm with them. Of boundaries. So we're familiar with physical boundaries, such as now is a good time to come, now is not a good time to come. We're familiar with physical boundaries that have to do with our bodies, such as sexual boundaries or boundaries against any type of violence, God forbid. What is my body is my body. There are also emotional boundaries. If someone consistently overrides what you're saying, if somebody consistently dismisses you, right? Someone consistently insults you, someone consistently pushes your boundaries to do the things you don't want to do, these are boundary issues, okay? There can also be spiritual boundaries, knowing that each and every one of us has a private relationship with Hashem that is never ever duplicated in anyone else on the planet. The Torah gives us the basic outlines of who Hashem is and how he works, but how we ourselves experience him is so private. I think it's one of the most private things. So we need to be very, very careful when telling people, not in a speech like you're teaching Torah, but one-on-one, like, have bitachon, hang on, or here's how, you can share your experience. This is what works for me. This is something special in my life that I've noticed, but we don't want to climb into someone else's life and say, you ought to be doing this. You should be doing that. You're not doing it right. You're not doing it enough. These are spiritual boundaries. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier today, which is very, very common, is the boundary between how women and men experience Hashem. As we know from the Torah and all the halachos, men need something else. So women can be on an emunah high. I've certainly experienced this, and it does not translate the same to their beloveds. It doesn't, and it cannot be imposed. The light can shine, but we don't want to have a boundary violation with our own spiritual journey. Okay? There are many, many other types of boundaries. Some of the things that we're looking at are also strong boundaries, solid boundaries versus fuzzy boundaries or porous boundaries, boundaries that really are not boundaries at all. It's just something that you said that you're hoping people will listen to because you said it once. No, sorry, they won't. It's your boundary. You have to keep to it. And finally, a very exciting one for me, one that I work on a lot, is a time boundary. When is it time? How much time do I allot to this part of my life? How much time do I spend on my phone? How much time do I have to offer? When is the coaching session over? Can I keep to a time boundary or am I always late? These types of boundaries are ways that we interact with the world. Okay. So we're going to take a pause over here. And this pause is before we go into our work to just check in with you in the chat box. I would love for you to, first of all, come on camera if at all possible. I understand that 8:00 at night, people don't always feel like showing up on camera. Maybe they didn't adjust their lipstick, or maybe they just, have a sink full of dirty dishes. We don't care about any of that around here. Yeah, if you're in my house, you might see some dirty dishes too. I'm in someone else's house as it happens. So we have a nice white wall. Great to see you, Leila and Yasmin. Thanks for everyone who is on camera. It just makes a very friendly environment and it's so nice. Thank you, Chaya and Blimi. Welcome. And thank you, Maya. It's great to have you. Thank you, Miriam. Welcome. It's nice to see the faces behind the names. So we're going to put into the chat box now, whether you're on camera or not, doesn't matter. One statement or idea that you heard over the last 15 minutes that just you want to take with you. Anything, any learning point. I always find we learn best from ourselves. So that's whatever you write down in here is what you're going to actually remember. So go ahead and capture it. And it's great to share it on the chat because then it's just a group vibe. It feels really nice.
How do I go to the chat? I don't see the chat here.
Oh, you're welcome to say it out loud if you'd like while the chat comes in.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea that you can't inflict your religious ideas on someone. You can only share what you have experienced.
Yes, thank you. Europe is such a great place, but someone else is just not. And then it literally is offensive to their system. And then you can't bring up Hashem's compassion. You got to be compassionate. Hashem's compassion flows through you. So don't think God's not there. It's just he's asking you, could you show up godly and be kind?
As a matter of
thanks
fact,
for bringing that up. It's so good.
As a matter of fact, when I'm in, this is happening, it happens to me a lot because I'm involved with a lot of people that have serious health challenges. And when I hear, if I'm in the presence of anybody and they start doing this, giving a little musar or saying b'tachon or that, I have my standard refrain, which is that it's a lifelong process to internalize that. And the proof is in Aleinu, because it says, V'yadata hayom, you shall know it today, which means you start with the intellect, you return it to your heart. You say that 3 times a day. That's Hashem acknowledging that this is a lifelong work.
Thank you. What a golden nugget. That is a golden nugget. Okay, let's take a look. Shoshana, is Hashem's constriction? Oh, I see that was sent privately. I'm going to leave that question. I don't know the answer. Layla, setting emotional and spiritual boundaries. Boundaries could be between me and myself. Yeah. Setting emotional boundaries and boundaries for myself. I like the idea of making time boundaries with the thought of limiting phone and increasing other parts of my life. I love and am energized what you shared about time boundaries and how most of boundary work happens on the inside. Wow, yes. Boundaries create connection, not separation. Boundaries are an internal expression of an outer self. Whoa, poetic and magnificent. Yes, someone's message came in privately. I read it. Boundaries I see is making space for the other and respecting their otherness. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Thank you. Look out for my porous boundaries. Decide if I want to strengthen them or let them go. When do you offer advice and when do you allow her to bring out what's inside of her? Always we can offer advice, first of all, when there's a space of trust. And secondly, when we are offering it, not telling it. Can I offer something to you? And if they say yes, then you say, yeah. Or are you ready to hear something? Can I share some? Yes. Okay. We're going to talk about 2 more things. Is there someone named Sky here who's unmuted? Oh, SKV, did you want to say something?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I love what you said, that when there are healthy boundaries set and there's respect, then you can have such a good relationship. And when there's a lack of boundaries, it ends up with resentment, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for your voice is coming out. It's like ringing so clear. So thanks for underlining that. It's perfect. Yeah. Rachel, thank you. I got the notes about the time. Even with the time boundary, I have 2 more things to cover. So I want to bring our attention to 2 more types of boundaries that are super helpful in work. And that is thought boundaries and feeling boundaries. Okay? Thought boundaries. We'll give it to you in short. Our mind is always thinking. We just think things. It's like, that's how it goes. It's inputting, output. However, most of our brain, 97% of it, according to what I just read, is subconscious. Only the frontal lobe, only one little part, 3%, is available for you in the here and now to see reality, to make decisions, to assess, to do all kinds of adulty good things in the here and now. The rest of your experience is your subconscious, which is a healthy and wonderful thing because it means you don't have to think about everything. When you see trees, you don't have to label it like kindergarten. That was a tree. When you smell cinnamon buns, you get to think of all the cinnamon buns all at once. Isn't Hashem wonderful? He gives us a flood. It's gorgeous. However, once we know that most of our thoughts are just coming from pictures and images and memories and are not really in the present, then we can become aware that we sometimes need thought boundaries. So for example, we could get super triggered. They don't like me. They can't stand me. And it literally has nothing to do with reality. That's you being you with your 97% of your brain. That's all. So we need to employ a thought boundary. Okay? Self, I know you're thinking that. And you hold on. Thought boundaries are a big work that we do in coaching school. We don't always call them thought boundaries. We do a lot of work around grounding in positive messages and truths about Hashem and finding out who you actually are. So you could remember that in those moments when you are flooded, you get terrified of something and you need a thought boundary as your whole body's going, self is going to an anxiety, which is, hang on, thought boundary. Hashem is, hang on, let me do actual assessment. Am I safe or am I not safe? But if you don't know about a thought boundary, you actually just believe the whole thing, okay? So that's the first kind of boundary. And we do a whole thing on that, really breaking down a trigger, essentially, and how to unravel and create a thought boundary and find out what's really, really going on. Even before you find out what's going on, just knowing you can use your bechira to make a thought boundary is tremendously empowering. The second thing is a feeling boundary. Because we have this whole subconscious world that's so rich and ripe, we can get flooded with feelings, and that's just normal. That's part of being human. When we are flooded with a feeling, we're going to separate thought from feeling, as in it shows up in our body. Our heart starts pounding. We feel tight. We feel tense. It's a more visceral experience. It's an emotion. Energy and motion is moving through you, okay? And we can have a boundary to that, which is slightly different than a thought boundary, which is up here, cerebral. And again, this is big work, but even sometimes I find having names for things is super duper helpful. So I'm just going to give you the names, and I'm going to go on with my invitation to come to coaching school and learn some of this stuff. For a feeling boundary, you need to have a cultivated, inner, protective, and nurturing parent that can hang on to that child and say, oh, sweetie, like, I know you're so triggered. I know it feels just like this. I don't want you to have a tantrum at your whatever it is. You don't need to act out because I'm going to hold you in this. I got this. We got this together. Okay. I want to protect you. I don't want you to go hurting other people or hurting yourself. We're going to hang out in the feelings. We're going to use our 5 senses, our breathing to bring us into the present. We're going to be okay. All right. Feeling boundaries are huge because otherwise our feelings spill over onto other people and can make other people wrong or other people so scary to us. And they're just people. All right. So just take a moment to take in, that's all the frontal teaching we're going to do for today. Lots and lots of pieces over here. We're going to have just a couple of seconds to breathe it in. And if you're the praying type, go ahead and say a prayer that you get a beautiful insight tonight about what you need to do or who you need to be. And if you're a big relationship person, then focus on one relationship and give it some beautiful love, loving energy. Just whatever is difficult, know that it can get better. Okay. It's already getting better just by you sending good vibes that way. Now, let's pick up our pens and papers and our markers because we're going to use as many senses as we can to find out about boundaries. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to think about a place in our life where our boundary is either not there or it's more porous than you'd like. Okay? Something's not working well in your life. Either you are overtaxed in some way, not being treated well in some way, getting mad at people in some way, someone's getting mad at you in some way, you're carrying a load that's not yours to carry, it's too heavy. You know. I'll give you a moment to think of this. Now, in your mind's eye, see the mush. We're calling it a mush because that's what happens when our feelings and our experiences are enmeshed with someone else, something outside of ourselves. There's a mush. And in this mush, there is struggle. So think about the struggle. See the energy of it. If you can, maybe add some colors to it. See what it looks like. Feel what it feels like. And if you are ready, for now, I'm going, Layla, you asked an amazing question. For now, I'm going to ask you to direct your questions to Rachel. She's a fountain of wisdom. And that way, because this work is kind of quiet work, it will be easier than asking the questions. But afterwards, if we'd like, at the end, Rachel can repost her answers for everyone to see. For now, she'll just answer you in private. Okay? That way we keep our flow together. Anyone who has a question can ask it to Rachel. So, and even if it's like a situational question, you'll be in good hands. Okay? So before we draw it out, actually, Rachel, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to get our entire system aligned. Okay? Mind, body, and soul. When you think about this particular experience, if you are finished with being in struggle, you want a change and you are ready for change, enough of this, then please write in the chat box a big yes, as in, yes, I'm ready. Whenever you say yes, you get your whole being on board. Waiting for the chat box. Let's give it a yes. Yes from Yasmin. Yes from Rivka. Yes from Fegi, from Chaya, from Elisheva. Maya says yes, capitals. Leah, yes. Shoshana, yes. Sarah, yes. Leila, yes. Pearl, yes. It's so much fun to write yes, by the way. Write it as many times as you want. Yes, yes, yes. Hoodie, yes. I missed a couple of you, but you are all saying yes. Yes to Chaya. Yes. Okay. I like to hold myself as, okay, you know what? Forget about myself because we're in the middle of exercise. We'll speak later. So now you're going to draw out this mush. And the way that you draw is to allow the energy to move from your heart or mind through your hand and let it come out on paper. Get that energy out depicted in colors and shapes. And we're going to give you some time to do that. So please pardon me because I had forgotten to start the recording again. I'd just like to give that instruction for the benefit of who are listening later. And that is, we took out another piece of paper, imagine meeting in any particular situation, and then adorned that boundary with comfort and kindness, clarity and love, or whatever else needs to go on it. Okay, awesome. So we're here with our boundary. We're here with our mush. We haven't yet put it into action. And there is such a critical thing that we need to understand. And before we go into that very critical thing, we're going to take a big stretch, however you feel comfortable, because whenever you do inner work, you just need to keep your energy moving. Okay, you can stand up if you like. Whatever feels good. We're gonna do a little standing up later, so I'm just gonna sit. But yeah, get in here. You've been focusing. Okay. So the thing that we want to look at before we go on step is my 2020 favorite line. I haven't decided on 2022. My 2021 mantra was boundaries protect what is precious. I suddenly had this delightful awareness that, I mean, we've learned it since kindergarten, by the way, don't touch that, it will break. But, for me, sometimes words just make me so happy. Boundaries protect what is precious. After thinking that boundaries are like, I must protect everything, which basically meant like there's evil and evil. There's precious things, precious, precious. Resentment and to enmeshment. I don't want that. It's too precious. I've got to set a boundary over here. Okay. Or somebody else's heart is so precious. I got to set a boundary. Or the student's time is so precious, whatever it is. It's just precious. And because it's precious, it needs that special thing called a boundary. I didn't make that up. That's what the Torah says, but I love those words because it's just filled with love and kindness. Like, of course, I got to take care of this thing. It's precious. Boundaries protect what is precious. It's up on my fridge. Okay. So that means my body is precious. How I eat is precious. How I sleep is precious. I got to take care of myself. I only have this body for a little time over here till 120 and Mashiach and Tchias and all that good stuff. But yeah, everyone in my life is precious. What are the rules for every interaction? It all needs guidelines. So boundaries protect what is precious. You are precious. So we're going to get on another piece of paper and we're going to start drawing a picture of you. Okay? Don't start drawing just yet, because the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to find out, with this idea of what is precious, find out what actually happens when you put down a boundary around that painful experience. You take an action or make a decision that you'll no longer be involved in this way. Okay? What actually happens to you on the other side of that boundary? So yes, we put up a wall and that mush is on the outside or something's on the outside. But what's on the inside? You. And what's available within this boundary that wasn't previously available? And who? Okay. So
I'm sorry, I missed the last part. And
who do you get to be? Who do you get to be on the other side of this boundary? Okay, and let's draw a picture of that woman. She set the boundary. She took care of what is precious, whether it's her heart, her time, her efforts, her relationships. And who does she get to be? I'm going to turn on the light over here. As you depict this woman, let's remember that every boundary is a choice. And every time you make a choice, you become more beautiful. That's where self-esteem comes from. Self-worth and value comes direct from Hashem. Self-esteem comes from your good choices. Every time you make a choice, you become more beautiful. And if beauty doesn't interest you, you become stronger. You become more actualized. Whatever floats your boat, you're becoming the best version of yourself. It's awesome. Every act of boundaries and choice is an act of nobility and dignity. And I'm just bringing your attention to that because that's part of who you're becoming. Now is a good time to add some words. Of course, you're precious, and you're honorable, and you're strong, and you matter. So, what are some of the words that accompany your picture? Someone wrote peaceful. Amazing. Very good. Winding down. So let's remember that every machine comes with a manual. And nobody in the whole world knows how to treat you, the machine that is you. They won't know. They literally won't know unless you tell them or unless you show them. That's it. That's how my trigger work and my boundary work became much more about me than anybody else. Because I'm like, well, how could they know? I don't say. Or if I show up like acting like it's easy or acting like I want to, how would they know? They're not going to know. Okay. And our neshamas, they also speak to us all the time. They do try to tell us, please get off your phone. Please go to bed. Please don't do that. Don't get so angry. We feel it. The neshama speaks to us, and it's a terrible feeling. We actually feel terrible when we don't listen to ourselves. You know, it's just another thing to think about, that sinking feeling when you did the thing you know you shouldn't do. It's just not good for you, right? You know, your neshama told you. So that's why we're going to do this ending work that we're going to do, which is to create, you'll see, guidelines for ourselves so we can tune in better to what we need. Okay, now we're going to look at one more piece, and then we're going to go to action. One more piece. Are you ready? Boundaries create connection. So let's think about, how does this boundary support connection? And what type of connection does it support? And how is it everything that you and even the other have been waiting for? I'll pause. Now, despite the fact that we can see this boundary in our mind's eye, in real life, it's a little bit harder. We face our fears when we make a boundary. The fear of separation. I mean, the deepest survival fears of abandonment. Someone's not going to love us. Someone's going to get angry at us. Someone's going to not like us. We're not going to like ourselves. We're going to be a bad person. We're going to do the wrong thing, right? This is just what comes up. It takes tremendous, tremendous courage to make a boundary with another person. And it takes tremendous inner courage to make a boundary with yourself. So where does courage come from? How are you going to do this thing? Courage comes from clarity. When you're clear on why you must do something, then the courage it's borrowed from the future of what the outcome will be. It's borrowed from the necessity. It's not like you suddenly took steroids and, got more courageous. The clarity is the driving factor over here. And that's why I'm having you look at connection and at who you'll be and at what is the price that you're paying for staying in this particular behavior. Okay? So despite all that, we could actually use some guidelines as to how to set a boundary, because it is so frightening and unfamiliar. I mean, you can have someone go to a coach literally just like, how do I speak to my boss? I have to on Fridays. And it's like terrifying, Yeah, how do I speak? It's just like everything feels big to us. We're just so sweet and delicate in that way. So the first thing you do, and I don't mean only the softer healing work, but particularly in the coaching work and the building work, the lines, that's just how it goes. So I invite you once again to come and do some work with us in coaching school. It's this second thing, are going to do one of these conversations, you want to be prepared properly. So let's run through a couple of guidelines, okay? Guideline number one is take down those triggers. You want to move yourself into a calm space. So you might want to take a walk. You might want to say a prayer. You might want to do some breathing, whatever it is that gets you back into your calm space. And the second part of that calm space is stepping into love. Love is the highest vibration. And therefore, you can step into love in so many ways. You can step into self-love. Self, we got to do this. We're going to celebrate after. We're going to do something hard. But self, this is what needs to happen. Okay? You didn't come this far just to come this far. We got to do this. You're worth it. Or love of other. I really love this person and I'm really mad at them. And if I really love them, I'm going to do something about this. Or I'm not feeling so loving towards this person, but I'm stepping into the love of life. Life gave me this person in my life, and I want to take care of it like it's precious. So if I want to love life, I got to do something about it. Or I love life, and therefore I'm going to treat it a little better. I'm going to say I'm going to make that doctor's appointment. I'm going to set a boundary around my health. Or my inner peace. I'm going to set a boundary when I start thinking about other people or their business or their life or their victories. I'm going to set that boundary. Okay. That brings us to our third guideline. Can you get a mantra or spiritual principle that helps you when you're about to make a boundary? Okay. A beautiful one is who is honored, one who honors others. Okay. I'm coming to bring honor and dignity to this relationship. Another one is you should love your fellow like yourself. Another one is boundaries protect what is precious. Another one is I got to do this. This is what Hashem wants. I want what Hashem wants, and Hashem wants good, healthy relationships. Do not hate your brother in your heart. And you should judge your nation righteously. You can't judge righteously if you're in that mush in your mind. It doesn't work. You want it to work, but it doesn't. Any mantra that helps you. Okay. Just as Hashem is merciful, I want to be merciful. Anything like that. Or simply, I am awesome. I am awesome and this is okay. This is normal. I have nothing to be about. It's me who's got a little, thinking it's not normal, but it's normal. Relating statement of all. It's okay. It's okay. And it's going to be okay. It's okay. Life. These are the pieces of life, and you can trust the process of life. You into any kind. Remember that Hashem is the healer. This is you just got to set a boundary, and that's painful because we want to be all in. So you got to remember that Hashem is the healer. Our job is to hold a space of love. We hold the space of love, but we can't do the healing. So that means we can't do things that really don't work for us or aren't good for us. We got to hold a space of love for them and for ourselves. Remembering that Hashem is the healer means that you can always say a prayer for this other person. Remembering that Hashem is the healer means you can say a prayer for yourself. Hashem, I have self or with boundaries or with food forever. Okay? I've just been struggling. I need your help. You are the healer, but I will set the boundary to myself. But I'm going to need you to carry this whole thing. Beautiful. All right? And finally, when you do set a boundary, whether it's for yourself or for another, whether it's for yourself or for another, you want to be clear and firm. When you set a boundary, it does not have to be an entire discussion. That is for a different conversation called intimate connection. First of all, you don't always want intimate connection. Secondly, this is not the time. Okay? Boundaries mean I'm setting a clear request. I'm just setting what I need. That's all. Okay? And it should be without charge because you've already done all this pre-work and you're just going to say, I really need to leave on time. I can no longer blah, blah. Now, the most beautiful part about this work is that what we are all so scared of, I say we all, it's a general assumption, which is the big conversations or the difficult boundary settings, almost never have to happen in real life. In real life, when you know who you are on the other side of the boundary, you show up in a boundary of self. You show up differently. So instead of being like, what do I tell my friend? She always keeps me on the phone for so long and I don't know what to do, and how do I set a boundary with her? Well, it's got nothing to do with her. Once you know what's on the other side, that beautiful, honorable self who's kind and compassionate wants to preserve the relationship, then at 10 o'clock, you could say, I got to go now. You just showed up differently. Or you could say, I have 5 more minutes and hang up in 5 minutes. Nobody has to, the world does not have to take a massive hit because of your inner work. Sometimes we have to express it, but most of the time, I find when people do boundary work, we can make it so much about the other when really You just show up differently. Okay. Setting a boundary around dinner. Well, the kitchen closes at a certain point and you don't have to make 10 speeches to children. You just get to 10. See how nice that was? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I know, sweetie. Kitchen closes at 10. That's what we mentioned yesterday. We keep to the boundary 100% of the time. Not 100% of the time, 98% of the time. Keep to the boundary. Okay? When you make a boundary, the ones who you make a boundary with will test it almost immediately. It's not even conscious and nobody's mad or bad. They're not in your brain to know that it just took you 6 years to come up with this boundary. They don't know this is a really big deal. So they're just going to go keep doing what they're doing. Nobody's fault. So you're going to have to be really, really clear on who you are and just stick with it. Same thing with your Yetzer Hara. You say, I'm going to get off my phone at 10, or you say, I'm going to do, 10 minutes of exercise in the morning. 3 days later, going to do this thing, and that's that. Okay. This is huge work. Now, the exciting part about boundaries is that when you set one and you are victorious, whether it's for yourself, your thoughts, your actions with yourself or with another person, you get stronger, which means the next boundary becomes easier. So in our earlier class that I'm loving this month, which is a man cannot pull himself up by his own hair. It doesn't work. Therefore, it can be super hard to figure all this stuff out by yourself. That is why we love coaching. You have friends in the process. You get coached in the process. When you come to school, God willing, you'll get tons of personal coaching along with practicing coaching others. Not only that, you'll get coached specifically on these topics that are so tender to your relationships, because a man cannot pull himself up by his own hair. We are in our own enmeshments. So if you have friends that you can talk things through with, if you have, a wise mind that you've cultivated, that can take you very, very far in helping you to sort things out. I believe that all of us will at some point reach our natural limitations. We're really going to need to be learning from other people, but Hashem is going to help us. Is it that I'm freezing or that my voice is going out?
Freezing.
Horrible for you. Hello. Yes, it's good here. I apologize. So we're going to go into action now. All right. And in order to get into action, we're going to get our bodies into action. There's so much incredible, gorgeous listening going on here. The air is so rich. I just want to infuse it with prayer. Hashem, whatever we are each individually thinking about, please give us ultimate siyata d'shmaya in stepping into self and bravery. Thank you, Hashem. Okay. Action time. Rub your hands together. Get moving. Stamp your feet. If you'd like, you can stand up and stamp. Action. Because it's happening right now. We're about to create awesome action. 2 pieces are happening right now. First thing is writing down what's the boundary you're going to set. You know it. You have it in your mind. You've been thinking about it this whole time. Could be for yourself. Could be for others. You don't have to tackle your whole life at once. Tackle one piece and stick to it. Do the thing you said you'll do. That's all you got to do. Nothing else. Write it down with intention. Let your pen tear the paper. This shall be done. Sarah, what we're writing is the action that you're going to take to set a particular boundary for yourself or with another. I really beg you, most times you don't even have to speak it out. Just make a new request. It's incredible. All right. Next, the next thing you're going to do is decorate this particular action, infuse it with gratitude for this moment. You couldn't make this boundary before this. That's how life works. Not everything is available. to us all at once. We gotta mature. So we're here now, and that's what matters. Decorate it with gratitude, decorate it with acceptance, decorate it with prayer, decorate it with absolute confidence that you will be supported. An example of a thought boundary from Shamaria, a critical thought. If you naturally go to a critical eye, you can create a thought boundary that says, every time I think a critical thought, I will look for the good. Every time I think an accusatory thought that they're not enough or disappointing me in some way, I will replace it with a thought of compassion. Okay? These are thought boundaries that are superbly deserve a workshop themselves, because we know that our thoughts. So when you, I'm not asking you to work on thought boundaries today, but just knowing that like your thought boundaries comes from there. It's huge. And another teaching on that sometime. That's where it really all happens. And you could be so nice to someone, but there could still be not a great connection because their heart, whatever, is their heart understands that the thoughts are not so comfortable. Yes. Big tip for intimate relationships. It's in your thoughts. How do we come to better thoughts when we are having trouble? We enforce thought boundaries. We do it again and again and again a million times. Okay.